Hello, Tom. Thank you for joining us today.
Here I am. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I'm ready for it.
No, we are super ready, super excited. We'll leave all of your details in the description below. But you're obviously from Paranoid American, which is a great channel, and you do many other great things, which I'm sure we'll touch on throughout the episode. But I guess to kick things off, I just want to ask you about like the term Illuminati gets thrown around a lot, and I've noticed that a lot of people throw it around without actually knowing much about it. It's sort of got its stereotype, and it's sort of what it means today gets sort of when people talk about the Illuminati, they just sort of put it out there, and it just means this big group of evil people. Full stop. That's it. But I was hoping you could give us a more of a probably a background and more of a description of what they actually do, where they came from, and how much they actually impact our life today.
Yeah, it's fine. And just to keep it more like conversational, I won't pull up my notes, so I might get like some dates and places like shifted like just slightly, you know what I mean? But I think one of my favorite analogies here is when you think about branding or when you think about how like a very specific feature gets attributed to like a wider practice. And to be practical, you ever heard someone say, I know it's a little bit dated now, like, oh, go make a Xerox of that, paper. Like, I'll go make a Xerox of it. And what they really mean is go make me a copy of it. They don't mean go find specifically a Xerox machine and use that to make me like just make me a copy. Whatever you got to do, make me a copy, get me a Xerox of it. And Xerox fought against that, really, really hard. Same thing with I think Polaroid, like, oh, take me a Polaroid of that. And it's like companies end up doing too well at branding themselves, or they're too good at a certain technology or practice that everyone just refers to it as the thing, right? Like, give me a Coke. And it's like, well, do you want a Pepsi? Do you want a Coke? You mean a cola or do you want a Coke? So once you own that term because you've just done something so monumental or so, like world changing that people just refer to it as that. So the analogy here is that the Illuminati was so good at what they did. The original Illuminati, which is the Bavarian Illuminati, and there were other groups that called themselves something that could have been translated, but specifically, we're talking about the one founded May 1st, 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, and he kind of had a second in charge after he had grown this for a little bit. But that Illuminati was so great at infiltrating other secret societies and garnering this like intelligence network. It was like one of the original, sort of like CIA type organizations or Mossad. Like it was way older than that, but they figured out a way to really concentrate a bunch of knowledge and just information. And then being able to do that, it kind of like reverberates through the centuries. So even though the Bavarian Illuminati itself kind of dissipated, now it's like that's the Xerox. You know what I mean? Like if you can infiltrate some kind of a high class society or like a powerful small group, if I can infiltrate that from far away and maintain control over it in a way that they don't realize, that's an Illuminati. So it gets thrown around, but I think it does get thrown around in an appropriate way. Because even when someone's like, "Oh, it's the hip hop Illuminati," Drake's in the hip hop. I mean, they're like Drake is a kingmaker, right? If he just plucked a random person off SoundCloud that had 400 total plays and was like, "Yo, everyone, follow this guy. I'm gonna be doing like an album with him. He's gonna be featured on my next two albums." Like, guess what? Even if that's music has no merit and no one likes it, like he's probably gonna get like a million followers just because he was touched by a kingmaker. So in that regard, there is some merit in just blindly throwing Illuminati around because there kind of are these like little secret cabals. But to specifically talk about the Bavarian Illuminati and their practices, I think that's like a lot of people don't even realize where that word came from and why it has that power to it.
So when you mentioned hip hop Illuminati, what when you see like Jay Z gets brought up a lot and the symbolism
Yeah, because he always does.
yeah.
Yeah,
What does
of
that
course, man.
what does that actually mean then? Is that just something that Jay Z does to make himself brand himself as Illuminati so he gets more publicity? Or
Yeah, I mean, I personally think so, but he also by saying it and being adamant about it, he also kind of made that into being, because all just like Drake, right? If Jay-Z decided I'm gonna make this person famous, like they got the power to do that. He's like another kingmaker, but he's a special one because he also like dances around with Marina Abramovich, the lady that does like the spirit cooking, and I think he's worn like Aleister Crowley sort of shirts or maybe like little symbols and stuff before. So it's very specifically overtly occult, right? It's like a cult's hidden, but when you do it outward to get people to think that you're a cult, there's definitely some marketing aspect to it, but it's also like it works, right? So I don't know, like we can't argue with the results that he gets from the whole thing too.
Yeah, that is true. Well, what was the Illuminati originally set up to achieve?
So Adam Weishaupt grew up in this basically took place in Ingolstadt, and he grew up in this area where the Jesuits ran everything, including the school that he went to and then became sort of a professor at. And during this course of his life, he lived at a very unique time when the Jesuits fell out of favor with the rest of like the authorities in Germany. I think it came from the Pope. I think that they actually like basically took away a lot of the Jesuits' original control. And in that transition, he gets automatically sort of like promoted to a head position within the College of Ingolstadt. And I think it was law. He was some kind of like a law, like the youngest law professor in history at Ingolstadt. But part of that was because it was like get these Jesuits out of here and get a non-Jesuit in place. And then he saw himself as very much an atheist. So he kind of had this very pugilistic, sort of like antithemic like dynamic between him and these Jesuit teachers, where he now wanted to be like do the opposite of what they were doing. He wanted to take all the religion out of all the schooling, but he lived in a society that was still so indoctrinated with the Jesuit teaching that he realized he had to do it in secret, otherwise he'd get kind of squashed out. So he slowly began finding other people that were sort of sympathetic to his own cause. And what he would do is, I mean, this is like the very, very beginning of the Bavarian Illuminati. If people wanted to join, he'd have them basically write out all the bad things that they've done, like kind of like, oh, here's all the blackmail that you could have on me in exchange for me being part of the group. So then you do that to like the first 3 or 4 people, and then you go and they don't know each other, right? So right now, Adam Weishaupt's the only one that even knows who else is in the Illuminati. They don't know each other. Then he goes and he finds out like who that person's friends are, gets them to join the Illuminati, but doesn't tell, hey, your friend's in it, right? He's just like, hey, you've been selected for this very elite group. So then he has friends spying on each other. He's like, if you want to stay in, you tell me what like, homie over here is doing. And then he goes to the homie over there and he's like, hey, tell me what your friend's up to. And he just keeps doing that with as many people as he can. But he's not just targeting random people. He's targeting like the heads of departments that are highly specialized in certain types of information, right? So at a certain point, he's like the top of this pyramid and he's got all these tendrils, and each one of those tendrils is a little string that he can pull at. So if someone were to come to him, let's assume it's you, right? So Adam, like instead of Adam Weishaupt, someone comes to you and they're like, hey, what is the way that I can turn this particular chemical substance into another one? And it's the late 1700s. Not a lot of people know that information. You don't even know that information, but you sure as heck know the guy that knows that information. So then someone writes you that letter and you're just like, oh, let me ask my friend. Oh, that's how you do it. And then you respond, but you respond as though like you're the one that knew that. So all of a sudden you become like this all-knowing, all-seeing person that like you knew what everyone was up to. All their research before they even are publishing it, because you've got your eye in everywhere. And what I'm describing is an intelligence network. That's all it is, right? If you boil it down, that's exactly what the CIA or the NSA or any kind of 3-letter intelligence agency does, is they just kind of like get their tendrils in a lot of places and then try to like sway things based on the information they've got. They don't have any real power or any real knowledge except for the knowledge that they convince other people to give them. So there you go. That's like the essential underlying, and that's just Adam Weishaupt as he started it as an individual.
So it started off just initially Weishaupt's network of people, and he was using them to play off each other.
Yeah, and it was doing it and also an attempt to kind of bring down the rest of the Jesuit and like religious influenced academic institution, because like the educational system was basically created by the Jesuits at that point, and trying to remove the religious component to that was, it was kind of one of his goals, but it would be so damn hard to do out, in the open, because everyone, even if it was no longer Jesuit run, it was still very much a religious society. You couldn't just come out and say, I'm going to be atheist, I'm going to start taking the religion out of everything. So that was the means for the covert aspect. But then, I mean, as you get into that chair, and now I've know everyone's, dirty work, and I know all this information, and I've got every sort of resource at my fingertips, that kind of power kind of can go to somebody's head. So that there's a huge aspect of that. And that's where the Bavarian Illuminati really kind of took off, where people refer to it today. If it had just stopped at him being, this guy high at Ingolstadt, that would have been one thing. But they go on to infiltrate, all sorts of Freemasonry across Europe. And at that point, I think it's like the cat's out of the bag.
Mm. So how much of that has had an impact on today, right? When you look at the education system that we have today, if we look at that, religion's basically on its ass, and no one really, at least people who were religious try and pass it on to their kids, but more and more of the kids are turning away from religion, organized religion. So how much of that has had an impact on what we see today with?
I personally think 100%, because we're talking deep down about the Enlightenment. So anyone that kind of saw themselves as an atheist during the Enlightenment, this was the goal, was to completely separate all spirituality, all, subjective sort of religious thinking completely from academia, at least, and then from society at large after that to follow. So, I mean, if we're talking about the Bavarian Illuminati specifically, yeah, because I don't know a lot of other secret, like for example, Freemasons, you're not supposed to be an eighth. I don't know how it is in UK, but like in America still, I don't think you're allowed to become a Freemason unless you do acknowledge that there's some kind of a higher power.
Yeah,
There's
yeah. I
some
think you have to
places,
worship some kind of god.
yeah, and you don't have to even verbalize exactly what kind of god it is, but it has to be. It's kind of like AA. Like, you can't go to AA unless you also submit yourself to some higher power, whatever you want to decide that to be. But this is one very key difference between the Bavarian Illuminati and any other secret society that I'm really aware of, is that the Bavarian Illuminati at its heart, at least at the very top levels, Adam Weishaupt and down, that it was atheistic. Like, they were anti-religion of any kind, and they didn't want you to believe in any god. And this is also where some of like the shade gets thrown at Freemasonry, where like, on its own tangent, this guy Leo Taxel, he's also this atheist that is anti-Christian, he's anti-Mason, he writes all this stuff, but he kind of takes some of the rumors or some of the things that the Bavarian Illuminati would say in order to get people to prove that they weren't, dogmatic against their religion. There was similar claims about like the Knights Templar would have to like profane and like do these heretical acts, but that also was to just show that they weren't dogmatic against a certain religion. Like, they could think in a higher order of, if I do this thing, like, you're not going to offend God, it's a symbolic act. But all that stuff kind of gets attributed and then thrown at the Illuminati because of that atheistic sort of intention that they started with.
Mm, yeah, I mean, with the blackmail side of things, that's all over the place now. Because I mean, what you said at the beginning makes sense now, because that model worked. So for other people to replicate that model and try that same model again, it's going to work. It is, in a sense, is it not like building? It's basically building a powerhouse, but is it not building a cult-like experience for in certain settings?
Well, yeah, so the cult-like experience, because we're talking about just the practical way that you would employ this, and like the dynamics of it. But then when it gets into the cult-like version, this is where Adam Weishaupt would claim that he had all this esoteric knowledge that he had gotten from across the world, and that if you joined the Illuminati, you would get some of this profane knowledge about, ancient deities and also like ancient mystery cults. But the truth is, he didn't really have a lot of info. He had maybe like 1 or 2 degrees worth of work that he was kind of just plagiarizing from other sources and like twisting it up. But as people would join on and they're like, what about this second degree? What about this third degree? He realized that he was kind of selling more than he had in stock, like very, very quickly. And the level of people that he was attracting, they wouldn't be satiated by just kind of like offhanded and like just gaming them, right? So he enlists the help of this guy, Baron von Nige, who I believe was already a prominent Freemason, and he had all these connections. But Baron von Nige took it very seriously. Like he was actually like, yeah, I'm down for this. Like, let's write an entire system of degrees and like uncover all this occult and arcane knowledge for people. And I think that he's almost like if it were like a business run by two friends, right? Baron von Nige is like the designer that like is obsessed with making a great product and talking to the people and like, you know, wanting to put his creativity out there. And then Adam Weishaupt is just like the cutthroat CEO that's just like, what's the bottom line? How much profit? Like, when are we shipping? So like this dynamic between them eventually makes them split a little bit. But Baron von Nige just put everything that he's had into this. This is like his like life's work almost as a creative endeavor. So he does everything he can to actually make all these degrees and everything legit, which only helps Weishaupt that much more because now like everything he's doing seems like it really does have this arcane knowledge. But really, he's literally coming back at the end of the day and he's like, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, right? But like, hey, I just signed up another 50 suckers, but I told a couple of them that like we're up to degree 8 or 9 right now. So like, where are you at, bud? And he's like, yo, I'm only at like degree 3. He's like, hey, by next month, you're like, just crank them out. Whatever you got to do, invent gods, find gods, combine gods, just make something interesting. So I got something that I can keep selling. And at a certain point, Von Nige was just like, I'm over it, right? Like he realized that it was a Ponzi scheme and that he was like, Adam was always going to be selling more degrees than they had. And then Von Nige was just going to be on the hook to just keep delivering like these really cool degrees. And at a certain point, it's like you can only like metaphorically kill someone and raise them and show them fireworks and gold and all this crazy stuff so many times before they're like, all right, like what else you got, you know? And I think really quickly, I think this is also why one of the old rules of the ancient mystery religions, like what was it, the Elysian the names escape me. That was the ancient Greek one where they followed the cult of Demeter. But you're only supposed to do it one time in your entire life, and you weren't supposed to go and do it a bunch of extra times. And that was cause it kind of built up to this huge crescendo, and then bam, they would deliver this incredible information on you, and then you were supposed to just like soak on that for the rest of your life. But with the Bavarian Illuminati, it was just like, come back next month and it'll be bigger and better like each time, and you can only keep making it bigger and better so many times. But that was the cult aspect, is the people that really bought into that, and they were like, man, I'm learning the mysteries of the universe from this guy.
So what did the Bavarian Illuminati expand into? Like, is it still around today, or is it different iterations, yes, or how does it look?
So the biggest fuel on the fire for Bavarian Illuminati was at, and this is where I'm going to get some of the dates a little bit hazy, but it was the Congress of Wilhelmsbad, and this was, man, the early 1800s maybe. But essentially what happened is that you had, I think it was the Lodge of Perfection, and they sort of had this doctrine that Freemasonry came from Knights Templar. Like they actually kind of had that as part of their core system of beliefs, but it wasn't a universally popular idea for all Masons across Europe. And there was a lot that didn't want to link themselves to the Knights Templar for a lot of the heretical reasons that I mentioned earlier. And we're just like, there's not a lot of proof for it. It adds a lot of baggage. Let's just cut that stuff out. Like, let's stop claiming that. So they all get together, and I'm way oversimplifying this. There's a lot of other like little nuances, but they get together at this Congress of Wilhelmsbad, and it's like all these various sort of like splinters of Freemasonry. You got the Lodge of Perfection that believes in the Templar. You've got the ones that don't believe in Templar. You've got the Bavarian Illuminati shows up to this same Congress, and a few others. And collectively they come together and they're like, okay, we're going to just stop doing the Templar thing. So everyone stop claiming to be from the Templars. And, you know, and if you do, then you're technically not doing like real Masonry anymore. And you might be in conflict. Like you might be a co-Mason. At that point, you're kind of like kicked out, right? You're in bootleg Masons. So after that happens, everybody that liked all the Knights Templar stuff, they're kind of like, well, that sucks. Like, I've like the coolest thing that I got is this cool Templar sword, and now I gotta like take it off my wall, or like that was my favorite part. So, and I'm being a little facetious about that, but the Bavarian Illuminati, they go around, they're like, hey, isn't this messed up, man? Like, we're not allowed to talk about Templars anymore. We're not I don't agree with that. Do you guys want to join our group? Like, you can still be a Mason, but you're going to be in an even more secret version called the Bavarian Illuminati. And here we still believe in the Knights Templar. So, like, you can secretly keep believing what you want to believe anyways with us. And it wasn't like that the Bavarian Illuminati actually cared about Knights Templar. It was just like they saw this like hemorrhaging of customers that were unsatisfied, right? They just got kicked out of their favorite club. So they're like, hey guys, come join this club if you're unhappy. And that caused this incredible swell in lots of Freemasons all across Europe starting to join the Bavarian Illuminati. And then that had this ripple effect where if you got a high ranking Mason that joined the Bavarian Illuminati, they could go back to their lodge and then recruit other people. And once you just got like the worshipful master and maybe like the senior deacon, junior deacon, or some of the higher positions in the lodge, if you got them in board, well, now the whole lodge is basically like an annex to the Bavarian Illuminati. And you repeat that enough times, and now all of a sudden you've got this Bavarian Illuminati at the top, the eye on the pyramid, and all the Masonic lodges across Europe become like little annexes of that. So, and just imagine that spreads out, and then those guys go to France, and then those guys go to America, and that's where that letter from George Washington, and I think they're talking about John Robison, and George Washington is writing like, I don't think the Illuminati has made it to America. It's like a European thing, but I'll keep my eye open. So that's like that whole entire lineage, and this is the exact same time period, right? 1776 is when the Illuminati is formed. 1776 is when America is formed. So there's lots of interesting overlap there.
Yeah, that is funny about the 1776 side of things. What well, yeah, so you've explained why there's such a big connection between Illuminati. For those that wouldn't be able to put that connection together, when you do hear about Masonry, you automatically sort of think Illuminati, but I knew it didn't come from sort of a background of Illuminati. But like, knowing what everyone knows now, why are so many people so attracted to joining the Masonry right now? Because, and I'm talking about lower level people, because I'm seeing people that they're not born into these, like, I'll call them quite weird families where they're super rich and they're into all these secret societies and all that crap. They're just normal, everyday people, but they're attracted to join Masonry. Why is that? Or at least in the UK they are, I see. I don't know what it's like in America, but I imagine
there's a few answers to that. So like the easy ones is the social club aspect. There's a lot of people that just join because they're lonely, you know what I mean? Or maybe there's like the dynasty aspect, the legacy, like, oh, my grandpa or my dad was, so I'm gonna be one, like, to see what it was all about. And then you've got the movers and shakers and networking aspect, where you realize there's legit politicians and there's legit businessmen and people that have expendable income and expendable time because they're doing fairly well and they're going to be members, and they have more time to do more of like the administrative higher level stuff. So naturally it would be a place, like, if you just moved into a new town, and this was one of the original intentions of Masonry, like way back in the day, that there weren't really like a LinkedIn account where someone could look you up and check your references, right? So if you just moved from New York to California, and you're just like, I'm good at what I do, trust me, bro. Like, here's my credentials, trust me, bro. Here's my resume. But with Masonry, you were kind of like registered, and you would have like a track, and you could say, yeah, I was at lodge such and such, and they could contact somebody at lodge such and such and say, hey, I've got brother so and so, he moved into town, he wants a job, like, is he a good person, is he a drunk, does he hit his wife, like all that stuff. And they would vet you for that. And if anything happens to you on the way there, if you like break your leg on the way of moving, you've kind of got this like insurance policy where you've got your brothers, right, that'll help you out. And even if your car breaks down on the way to move over there, you can find a lodge and be like, hey, I'm a Mason in this other spot, can you help me out? And that's legitimately like the non sort of exploitative networking aspect of it, where it really was a safety net and a way to vet people and a way to prove that you were vettable as a person. Now that aspect is very outdated now. So now I feel like modern day Masons, why does anyone want to join now? My favorite but flawed analogy is that imagine that you love chess, right? And that you didn't want to just play online chess, you wanted to play chess in person with somebody somewhere. So if you're not in school, that automatically is like, let's say you're a 40-year-old dude, right? And you want to play chess in person. What do? You start like looking up like chess clubs, right? And see if someone's meeting up on like a weekend or like an odd day, and you show up, and now you're meeting with people that are just so passionate about chess that they also decided to get in their car and drive out to some place just to play a long, boring game with other people that are right. So it's like it's a very niche. Like, the fact that you like chess so much that you care about it puts you in one minority. Then you like it so much that you don't want to play online, you want to play in person, puts you in even smaller minority. And then if you've got the gumption to actually get in a car and drive somewhere and interact with people in, real life, like every time you make one of those decisions, you're in a smaller and smaller minority. Right. So now imagine your hobby isn't chess, but you like to talk about astrology or like ancient mystery cults or like, ancient symbolism, and you don't want to do it on Reddit and you don't want to do it on Twitter or online. What do you do? Where do you go? Do you like hang outside the library and like every person that walks by, like, hey, do you want to talk about occult symbolism until you find someone, right? So today, modern masonry and almost all these other like secret societies, as you might call them, I really think it's just like the version of chess club, but instead of chess, they want to talk about ancient alchemical formulas from the 16 and 1700s. Where else do you go to do that if it's not the Masons, the OTO, the Rosicrucians, like one of these groups that are kind of adjacent to each other?
Yeah, because I saw that makes sense. But what I originally just thought was people just did it for networking, because we're in such like a capitalist society at the moment where everything needs to be a business opportunity for a lot of people. So having that open to people to just go in there and say, well, there's so many of these other people that either have money or would like to have money, because it's such a like money fueled type of thing, that by joining there, you're just going to be speaking to like-minded people that either have money or would like to get money, and therefore,
well, plus imagine the guy that owns the company is a Mason, and he's got 20 candidates, and one of those candidates is a Mason. I mean, guess what? Like he might not be shoot in automatically, but he sure as hell is going to get a second look, more so than anyone else. If everything else is equal, you're going to hire the guy that you went to the same college as, right? Or if they were in the same fraternity as you, even if they weren't in the exact same year. Oh man, you were, Kappa, Beta, whatever, Theta, whatever. It's like, get over here. Let's see, they're all good people, right? You probably know Jim Jam or whatever. So that kind of aspect where it's instant rapport building. And I mean, that this has taken a lot of the mystery and the mystique and the fariousness out of it. That's just common human nature. If you've got rapport with someone, you're just going to automatically give them the benefit of the doubt more than anyone else that you haven't had a chance to build rapport with. So being part of like the same club, it gives you that. And that was a very early appeal to it, where it's like, oh wow, I'm going to travel out of my country for the first time in my life, and I've got like no guarantees that something bad won't happen to me. But if I join this group and they've got places all over the continent, no matter what country I go into, then I've got kind of like a safe haven or a safe place. The same couldn't even be said if you were like Catholic, right? Like, even though you were Catholic, you might go to another Catholic city and still be the enemy, but it was not the same as Freemasons. All the way into like the Civil War, there was stories where like if someone that was on the north and someone that was on the south meet each other and they give each other like the special hand sign, it's like, okay, like draw, you keep walking, I'll keep walking, we won't kill each other because we're both brothers or whatever. So I mean, there was a lot of like self-preservation aspect to it too, which showed that like us being Masons would have meant more than us fighting each other on different sides of a war. And it's really hard to understate how powerful that would have been to someone that sees that as an opportunity if they're going off to war that maybe they didn't necessarily want to, but they had to.
yeah, I've also seen it. I've seen it publicized on TV, but within the police department, the UK police force, there's so many of them in there that a lot of the corruption comes from it because they're all, and it's not even like deep rooted corruption. A lot of it's just, oh, I need to do a favor for this guy because he's in the same group as me. But then it stems into some crazy amounts of corruption because everyone's doing little favors for everyone else, and then they're trying to cover their tracks, and it just gets worse and worse. But it's all through.
Well, think about the Bavarian Illuminati again, right? Where you had Adam Weishaupt at the top that knew everybody's dirt, and he could just, in a moment's notice, like, hey, I need you to do this thing, and I got dirt X, Y, and Z on you, and I've got more dirt than you think I do, because not only have you been giving me dirt on yourself, but I got all your friends spying on you and giving me the other dirt. So then I could be like, oh, you didn't think I knew about this, huh? Like, well, I do, and I know about this, this, and this, and just having that kind of power. So if you extrapolate that out 200 years, and we're modern day, and now it's like the police force, all you got to do is just have that little intelligence network. And this is where no one has to come in and like establish themselves as like the grand czar Illuminati master of the police force. They just like, we know inherently as a culture, like every person, once you get to like a thinking age, you kind of understand how someone could infiltrate a place of power and just get their friends in positions. And this used to be sort of like arcane knowledge that, you know, the common man wasn't even supposed to know how to situate themselves like this. Now everyone knows how you do it. You know what I mean? It's like a Reddit mod takeover or something. Like even children understand the concept of like infiltrating and kicking out the old guard and bringing in the new. But this was fairly new, and it was definitely new to perform on a world stage across Europe and not just be isolated to like little towns or, you know, counties.
I think it was a great, like for the Illuminati, it was a great idea to start infiltrating the Freemasons, knowing the network the Freemasons already had. Like that was a master move on their behalf.
Yeah, I mean, it fit perfectly. And this is actually what Leo Taxel ends up criticizing. And it's the reason why I think calling something Illuminati is like Xerox today, because like they just latched on to this system that was just like waiting to be taken over by. There's, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of P2 Lodge, but P2 Lodge was, I think it was an Italian Freemasonic group, and they legitimately were doing like within Masonry. They just were like this horrible, bad apple sounds too mild. Like they were legitimately like the evil, dark, secretive Masons. But I mean, is anyone to say that the P2 Lodge maybe doesn't reflect like what, you know, actual Masonry is deep down, and all of the superficial like charitable stuff is kind of just for the surface? I don't know.
Well, one thing that keeps coming into my mind is when you're talking about blackmail and stuff, was about sort of, I know it's kind of going away from what we're talking about a bit, but about Jeffrey Epstein and sort of his black book that he apparently had or has. It's sort of like the exact same thing on that side, but with how big of a scandal that is, or like should be, how much of sort of the Illuminati and the Masonry, how much of that plays a role in keeping that book sort of out of everyone's sight completely?
In conspiracy circles, I think, is that it was a Mossad operation, and that Jeffrey Epstein was essentially a honeypot, and that he would just kind of like lure you there. Some people even knew that they were going to get blackmailed, but that was also like, imagine this too, right? So let's say that you hear about this Illuminati, and we're in Bavaria again, right? 1776. You hear this Illuminati is going around, and they're getting blackmail on people, right? So you're like, damn, that's kind of crazy. I don't want anyone to have blackmail on me. But you also notice that every single person in the Illuminati is like getting promotions, and they're like running banks, and all of a sudden they're just nonstop killing it left and right. So some people are like, man, so if I trade blackmail on myself, then I can also get into these positions of power. You know, they weigh it out and they're like, screw it, I don't have anything that bad to cover up. Or they're like, screw it, I've got all kinds of vices, but if I got all the power, then what does it matter, right? So I think that a similar dynamic could have happened with Epstein, where it was like, man, I know that if I play with this guy, like I'm going to be on some kind of a list because all these people are seedy. But if I show up, like Bill Gates might be there, right? Bill Clinton might be hanging out on the couch. So I'd be crazy not to take this opportunity to get on the Lolita Express and go to Little St. James and hang out in the basement with, the two Bills, Bill and Bill. So I think that there's that aspect of it too. And then when you get there, to sort of like an American, I don't know if you guys have seen Training Day with Denzel Washington, but like, so you get at Little St. James, right? You get off the Lolita Express and you see Bill Gates and Bill Clinton, come out with like 12-year-olds, and you're like, that's not my thing. I just kind of wanted to see you guys. And it's like, smoke that shit. You know what I mean? That's like if you don't, you're a cop. And if you don't do this thing that we all just did, well, then now you're a liability, and maybe you don't get to leave, or maybe you get blackballed in a way that you would have wished you never came to begin with. So, and like, so there's like half honeypot, half coercion, but it's almost like getting jumped into a gang, but instead of getting beat up, like you have to do horrific things, perhaps on video, and know that you're now under the thumb. Remember that Nexium cult kind of had like a very similar thing where they would have people join and then write these horrendous, like they would have them write something to like their parents. It's like, I hate you. I never loved you. You were the worst mom. Like write the most damning things to everyone they knew personally, just so that they knew that they had a reason to stay. Because if they ever left or defected or gave away secrets, then all of a sudden all these letters and their handwriting and like them on video would get sent to people. That was horrible. It's nuts, but that's one of the reasons, and I think that was the exact same dynamic. So a little bit of honeypot, a little bit of join us to get access type of thing.
Yeah, it makes sense because it's a system that just it unfortunately it works beautifully. Like there's not many flaws in, apart from the main, like how fucked up it is. There's not many flaws in the system if you're trying to just keep control over a certain amount of people or keep as much sort of power as you can within a group. Like it works.
Where do you think all this falls in with like satanic rituals and the use of minors for those rituals?
And like adrenochrome and everything else, right?
Yeah.
I think that I wouldn't discount, like, you look at Maria Abramovich, right? And I have a lot of different discussions with some of my friends. Some of them think that she's the ultimate troll, like she's trolling these elite. It's like, and I don't know if I agree with this. This is my friend David Charles Plate. Who's amazing. He does Sync Book, but he was thinking like, what if a Maria Abramovich is like, oh, Rothschild wants to take a picture with me. Great, yeah, come over here. Oh no, we just happen to be in front of this painting of Lucifer behind us, and like he's oblivious, but it's like, oh, you want to take a picture, like cutting into a baby cake and there's blood all over the place. Yeah, sure, get over here, Podesta. Like, let's take a picture. We'll like shake hands while we're doing it. So I like that reality. I don't think I agree with it, but I love the idea where like she's actually trolling all of these people. On the other hand of it, I think that man, I don't want to get on too much of a tangent here, but I started looking into the actual topic of adrenochrome to write about a comic book. And I just wanted to see like what would happen if you actually ordered some off the dark web and did a bunch. Like, can you OD on it? Like, are there any reports that people did this? So I started going on this rabbit hole, and like 2 years, long story short, but I found a bunch of research by this guy named Dr. Abram Hoffer, who also worked with a guy named Dr. John Smithies. And in the 1950s, they did a bunch of research into adrenochrome specifically, coincidentally, all funded by the 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemasonry, by the way, just coincidence. But all this funding, and he comes up with this hypothesis, and it's called the adrenochrome hypothesis. If you look this up, you can probably find it. But it's basically that adrenochrome is produced by, this isn't the theory, this is the actual facts, is that adrenochrome is produced when your body makes adrenaline, because you go into some sort of fight or flight response for whatever reason. And then as your body returns back to normal, that adrenaline gets converted into adrenochrome, and then the adrenochrome gets converted into more and more things until it essentially becomes inert throughout your system. I think ultimately ends up as melanin, like the actual pigment melanin, like the black, pigment. But if you are subjected to so much stress constantly, like you're just constantly being, beaten or tortured, or maybe you're just like out in the wilderness, or maybe you have a chemical imbalance, then your body is constantly producing adrenaline. And when your body is just nonstop making adrenaline, there's only like two outcomes. Either A, you somehow figure out a way to deal with that, or B, you have a heart attack, or your body just like gives out and you die from it, right? So if your body somehow is able to deal with it, what that means is that your body is able to rapidly break down adrenaline and convert it into adrenochrome. And one of the side effects is if you have a lot of adrenochrome in your system, it can act as a psychedelic or a trigger to other psychedelics. So now you're like not thinking right, you know, and this is kind of that like when you get into that fight or flight response, part of you is thinking correct because it's self-preservation, but there's another part of you that's like logic and all your education and everything civilized about you is out the door, and you're just kind of tripping a little bit. Well, that's the adrenochrome aspect. So if you can get over that as well and don't just become a complete delusional psychopath immediately, right? Then imagine this as like a muscle that you're building. If you can keep bringing yourself to the brink of insanity and then reel yourself back and then just keep doing that over and over again, then you can actually condition yourself to handle like the most overwhelming sort of adrenaline dump that your body can give on you. And you're like, well, why would you want to do that? Like, what's the point, right? So one of the points of that is that Dr. Abraham Hoffer cites in this research that there's also a direct correlation that people that have high levels of adrenochrome, or you could interpret this as people that have dementia or schizophrenia that runs in their family, because people with dementia or schizophrenia, they also happen to be able to produce and break down adrenochrome much quicker than someone that would have had a heart attack or succumbed to this part of that illness. So people that have that particular condition also have less instances of cancer. The ones that do get cancer, it tends not to be a chronic cancer. They have less conditions of heart disease for the reasons that we just described, like their body can process adrenaline, so it doesn't affect the heart muscle as often. So there's a very real correlation between longer life and an easier life and a better life if you can process adrenaline quicker. And the best way to do that is to kind of weed out people and figure out, you know, who can you bring to the brink of madness and bring them back and they're still normal after that. If you can do that to someone over and over again, they've got great genetics. And if you can use their genetics, then your offspring might be way more resilient to whatever the next wave of thing that comes out. And Dr. Abraham Hoffer in his papers specifically says that the bubonic plague and the black plague, there might have been a large number of people that survived that because they were schizophrenic or had dementia or had like a recessive gene that just had that in their DNA. Essentially their genetics just allows them to process adrenaline into adrenochrome faster. Again, I'm like way oversimplifying this for the sake of making a point, but that is. So are they doing satanic rituals and they cutting people and drinking blood and stuff? Maybe, because there's research that says if you do that, you might live longer and your kids might live longer. So there's one angle of that says, yeah.
Well, that's well interesting. I've never seen it from that point of view, but that's well interesting.
Yeah, it's a it's a lot like to drink someone's blood to gain the benefit. If that's happening.
Well, you don't even need blood. You can just get adrenaline, like epinephrine shot, right? Like an EpiPen. That's the same thing. And really, when they found adrenochrome in the original research, it was, I think, the end of World War One. They had a whole bunch of EpiPens laying around and adrenaline shots, and they just kind of like sitting around so long, they started to become pink. And if you look up an old claim of pink adrenaline, that is adrenochrome. It was adrenaline that had degraded into adrenochrome. And when people went to go and use it, they would report having these wild psychedelic visions and like, you know, crazy hallucinations and out of body experiences. And after time, that's when they actually realized, oh crap, like something's happening here and it's a psychedelic that the body is creating. And this was monumental because there's no other psychedelic that's really known that can be extracted from a living creature, any mammal that has an adrenal gland. You can extract the psychedelic from them now, or the adrenaline, and interchangeably use it with any other animal out there. I mean, there's some rumors that like the human brain synthesizes DMT and stuff. But I would love to believe that, but I haven't found any conclusive evidence that says like, yes, it absolutely produces DMT. Here's how it does it. Here's where it happens. Right now, I think it's just kind of like a theory that it does it somehow because, you know, the parts of your brain activate. But if anything, it might be adrenochrome. Maybe your system's just doing like a dump of adrenochrome.
You ever tried adrenochrome?
I've tried to find it. It is actually a registered it's a scheduled controlled substance. So it would be a felony to, actually like get a hold of it or sell it or anything unless you have like a scientific, qualification in order to get it. So if there's any scientist or anyone listening, you've got a willing participant. I don't want to do IV or anything, but if there's some kind of like non-intravenous way to test it, like I'm down. I'm not scared of that. I've got adrenaline in me right now.
Well, is this because I heard this theory? I think when the Queen of England passed away, the theory that these people, like these elites, these royal family elites as well, they don't die from the same things that sort of ground level people die from, like cancers and the heart diseases like you've been talking about. They sort of just die from old age and natural causes and so-called peaceful deaths. And it sort of ties into what you're saying, like if they're doing this, and like the Queen was quite sharp for her age, and she didn't look like she was as old as she was. So it does make sense that she could be participating in this type of thing.
I I don't want to say no, man, because one of the original reasons that we even did research into adrenochrome and dementia to begin with is because the elites and the rich, they realized this is very real, man, that there was this sickness that no matter what, if it started happening to you, there was nothing you could do. Like if you were the richest person that had all the resources in the world, if you started to show signs of dementia, it was a one-way street to just nonstop decline. So that's when they all the elite and all of the doctors get together and they're like, there's this thing, like even if we're rich and even if we stay healthy and we eat right and we, when we stay sanitary, like this thing still keeps happening and it's not a cancer because it affects the way that you think. And they actually saw that as more cruel than like a physical deterioration, because at least when you deteriorate physically or you've got cancer or you've got some other sort of sickness, like you can be coherent and have conversations and be the same person. But once someone started having like this Alzheimer's or dementia or schizophrenia, it was like they were changing as a person. And there's like lots of folklore would just be like, oh, sorry, they turned into a werewolf. Now it's okay to kill them, right? Or they're a changeling now. It's okay to throw them in the fire. But this was like a way of hand waving it. But when it kept happening to the rich and the elite, they were like, we have to do something about this. What is causing it? Like, and especially if it was like a 20 or 30-year-old, this is what you call as early onset dementia. And this is what they call dementia praecox. And dementia praecox is the exact thing that they were researching when they found adrenochrome, and they linked it to mescaline and they linked it to DMT and all these different chemicals. It was all because rich, wealthy, powerful people were scared that there was this thing that could get them too. So you were like totally on the nose with that.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because going back to the satanic rituals and the miners, there's rumors that, Jimmy Savile.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Uncle Jimmy. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had quite close connections with the royal family. And there's rumors that he was smuggling children to the royal family.
Of course. I mean, there was a picture of Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein hanging out in the exact same position at the exact same lodge that I think the Queen was at some point. Like they shared the same, like, summer winter home. So, I mean, yeah, it seems like they were just all sort of in the same connect, right? They were in the same Facebook group at the very least.
There's also this, again, another conspiracy. I think actually Aaron told me this one, where it's the elites push themselves so close to the point of death and then pull themselves back to sort of reality. Is that like a sort of ritual for this same sort of experience?
Yeah, Alex Jones has talked about this. There's also multiple. There's movies like The Flatliners and stuff that do this. Even when I was a kid, there was like this horrible craze where kids were dying and they would like come to the schools and say, don't do this. But they would like tie a string and kids would just like lean against the string until they would pass out. And then they'd have like their other friends pull. I think it was called the pass out game or something. I mean, it sounds silly, but this was a very real thing that kids were getting hurt when I was growing up. And it's basically the same thing. It's just another way to like get high, I guess, for free. But I guess the most extreme version is that you're not just lying against a string. You're like on a bed. You've got medical professionals around that are actually going to like kill you and then bring you back to life or bring you as close as you can. I mean, I'd rather just go and smoke a joint, man, if it's all the same.
Yeah, for sure. It's weird. Yeah, I think there was one recently which was, I don't know if it was some sort of chokehold or something, that where you push somewhere and then you could pass out for like 30 seconds, that the kids were doing on TikTok. I guess about 2 years ago, maybe. So I guess it's another way of.
I mean, a lot of people don't realize this, but I read, I can't remember what book it was, but it was that most kids discover their first like their first brush against getting high or inebriated is that like most of it is like spinning around. Almost every kid spins around until you get so dizzy that you can't really walk. That's not really as euphoric as it is like, wow, I can like make my body act in a way that I can't control it. But the next one is hyperventilation. So like and I remember this distinctly is that I it was like first or second grade, and you get like a big marker and just smush it down until like all the ink would form into a puddle, and you could like I would blow on the puddle and it would make like weird little patterns. But you do that long enough and all of a sudden you start getting like really, really lightheaded. And for a lot of people, that's like their first brush up against like entering this other realm or this other state of consciousness, right? So I think that that's like the most mild version of it. And I guess the most extreme version would be like, like take my life away, or, like completely like make me pass out or whatever. But I think it's kind of like on this scale a little bit. So if anyone's listening out there, just blow on some marker ink for a while. You don't have to actually pass out.
Well, it's almost as if these elites have got so much power, so much money, so much control that they just need, like, like you said, if everyone's got these feelings that they want to sort of experience the next level, these guys have got everything, so they need the biggest hit possible to. Because I can imagine for someone with all the money and all the control and all the power, like Elon Musk going on Joe Rogan and smoking a joint, I don't think that's as crazy for them as something like being killed and come back, being brought
That
back
would
to
be
life.
sick, bro. That would be the coolest Joe Rogan
Yeah.
episode ever. They're like, we're gonna kill Elon Musk and bring him back to life. That would get like the highest ratings out of any podcast ever.
I think that would actually break the internet.
I'd sign up for if there's a Kickstarter, I'd sign up for that.
So, just going back to the Illuminati. So we had Mark Steves on about 7 months ago, and we spoke a lot about the Skull and Bones.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's like an expert on that because he's right in their neck of woods.
Yeah, he gave us loads of information on it. But just linking that to the Illuminati, how have did they members of the Illuminati infiltrate the Skull and Bones, or how?
No, I think it's the same thing. I think by the time that the Bavarian Illuminati comes to like a crazy end, so the story is that Adam Weishaupt and like this messenger, they're traveling across, like he's kind of being pursued, right? They like the jig is up. They kind of know about the Bavarian Illuminati. They know they've been infiltrating, so he's kind of on the run. And as they're on the run, they're going in a lightning storm, and a lightning bolt strikes the guy that he's with right next to him and kills him dead. But Adam Weishaupt is completely unscathed, no problem at all. But what happens is that now all of a sudden he's got this dead guy next to him, and when the body gets found and he's with the body, they take him away, and as they're examining the body, they find all of these papers sewn into his clothes that they rip open the seams, and there's like maps and letters and like agendas and all this stuff. So this is when the jig is like really completely up, and the Bavarian Illuminati is essentially no more, just because it's no longer secret. And this one truly does, it kind of like evaporates if it's no longer secret. But like all those people that were in it and that had formed all these relationships with each other and have gained all this knowledge, they don't just disappear and go into the ether, right? They're still human beings that are on the planet, and they just kind of retreat back in the Freemasonry again, or they retreat back into whatever they were already in. Because it's not like you become part of the Illuminati and you leave every other club you've ever been in part of. It's just like, this is this new club that you're in that's better than all the other ones. So if it goes away, like you still know all those same people and you've got the same connections. So this is kind of what happens to the Skull and Bones, is that, you know, much later, like decades after the Bavarian Illuminati is essentially no more, you've got these Freemasons that come and they keep founding new lodges. And this is many theories, but one of the theories is that 322 was supposed to mean that this was the 322nd Bavarian Illuminati Lodge. There's lots of other interpretations of that number, but that I think this is from Anthony Sutton's work, that he says that when they came to Yale and they founded the Skull and Bones through Russell and Taft, that it was simply just an extension of that same network that had started, you know, atheists that had started and infiltrated Freemasonry and had to go back into Freemasonry and then came over to the States. And I think that was kind of, this is Washington saying, oh, no, you know, there's no Illuminati here. They didn't get in. Well, he dies, and decades later, I think that's kind of the best example of like, this is the Bavarian Illuminati coming in. And sure enough, I'm not a Skull and Bones member, but there's the rumors of the initiation ritual where they're supposed to lay down in a coffin and recite all of their sexual escapades and all the bad things that they've ever done in their life, while another bonesman sits there and takes notes. Like, this is exactly one for one what the Bavarian Illuminati used to do. So it's just that same process. And what's the Skull and Bones known for? Even if you take all the subjective and things that you have to kind of imagine are going on in the tomb, what really happens is that you get into the Skull and Bones, you come out, you get a job in industry, you get a job in the intelligence agencies, you become president, right? Well, I mean, that kind of feels like proof in the pudding. Like, what are the statistics that 3 or 4 or more people in a tiny club in one college in the entire country all end up becoming presidents? Even in the case of the 2001 election, right? It was Kerry and Bush. They were both in Skull and Bones. Like, what are the chances that 2 people in this tiny group that only admits, I think, like 13 people a year would both end up becoming presidents, and they weren't even in the same class as each other, right? So I think that when we talk about that, this is the intelligence agency aspect of Bohemian Grove and Skull and Bones, check, right? The elite aspect, check. The fact that they've got these occult rituals and they practice blackmail openly, check. Like, all of these things match up directly. I don't know about the atheist aspect of it, but that was so core to the Bavarian Illuminati that it seems like it would have to be in any of the follow-ups. And there's another one too that doesn't get talked about ever, but the Bavarian Illuminati had a patron saint of suicide, and they actually saw suicide as not a bad thing, and that you wouldn't go to hell for it because, surprise, they're atheists, so how could you get punished for it? But it also makes so much sense because it's like, if you promote and you have your own patron saint of suicide and someone discovers you and you've got blackmail on all of your friends and everyone you know, then it's like they paint it as this very acceptable way of like going out. So and I don't know, I'm only saying that because it gets overlooked, and if everything else from the Bavarian Illuminati made its way into Skull and Bones, maybe that too. And maybe all of like the suiciding, maybe it's legit. Like, there's like a lot of high level elites that are just like, oh crap, you know, they're onto me.
Yes. So it sounds like the Skull and Bones is like the next iteration of the Bavarian Illuminati. But
It was, I don't know if it still is, because they went co-ed in the late 90s or early 2000s. So now Yale Skull and Bones is like very inclusive, and it's almost like any other like college fraternity at this point. So I think that, just kind of like Masonry, right? Like, once we had insurance agencies and we've got LinkedIn and we've got sort of like national ways to do what the Masons used to do, and you've got trade unions. That's a huge one, right? Before Masonry, there weren't really a lot of trade unions, and then that kind of supplanted Freemasonry in a big way. But this is kind of like the exact same dynamic here, where like that system is in place and just keeps getting reused.
Yeah, like a break off from it.
Yeah, like now, like the same thing that might require a secret society at Yale can just happen in an actual like LinkedIn chat or on like your your encrypted signal chat. Like now you don't have to do all of the sort of smoke and mirrors that you used to have to do. Like now you just talking about it openly in a boardroom.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Or Bohemian Grove. That's one of the other remaining ones.
So do you know much about the Bohemian Grove?
Definitely. In fact, I don't know if I've got it next to me still, but I had these two thick Bohemian Grove yearbooks that I was going over last night. And I looked them up on eBay. I can't believe they're going for like $600 plus now, but
What?
I bought them up in like the late 90s. I got like 5 or 6 of them.
What?
Where did you get them from?
Here, eBay. Yeah, so like here's one of them. And this is called the Annals of the Bohemian Club, 1988 through 1996. Here, let me see if you guys are interested, I'll pull up some of the pages.
Yeah, that was so fucking cool.
But this is probably the last remaining truly like powerful known secret society. And I guess it's very American specific. I don't know if there's any
Yeah.
Europeans that are in Bohemian Grove. Here we go. Let's see here. I just got this, so bear with me. I don't know what I'm doing
Are
exactly.
you going to be sharing your screen?
Yeah. Oh, actually, no. I don't share my screen. I can just change my video.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So here we go. So this is here we go.
This is insane that you've got this.
I've got a sick collection of Bohemian Grove stuff. So like highlights of 1988, right? Oh, wait, hold on. I gotta move my mic here. Highlights of 1988. You can see they're dressed up. They've got like some guys from like Giants costumes, but here it immediately starts getting interesting. They loved playing dress up and drag. This is like their favorite thing to do.
What?
Is get dressed up and put makeup on. These are leaders of, you know, government, politics, intelligence agencies, financial institutions. This is what they do for fun. Here they're putting on this huge play with like a fabricated house and everything, like a big stage play. And we're talking like over the top, right? Look at these costumes.
Oh, yeah.
Chainmail and look at how many we're
Right.
getting too close to the truth.
That is dodgy that this has happened. Let's keep going.
Let's see. This is a thick book with lots and lots of images in it, but I'll show you some of the other like really interesting ones. This is one of my favorite pages in here. Look, this is a licensed Ghostbusters logo. They're reenacting Ghostbusters at Bohemian Grove, complete with the green ectoplasm and everything. This dude's like floating, like he's being possessed. We've got what looks like Herman Munster in one of them. This is on special effects night. Let's see. Yeah, so here's an actual ceremony that's happening in Bohemian Grove. It was cremation of care, right? It says it right there, cremation of care. And here they're doing this mock human sacrifice in front of this huge stone owl.
This is what Alex Jones, ceremony that Alex Jones broke into.
Yeah, I mean, this is the reason they get together is to do this particular ritual. But in addition to this one ritual, there's so many other things that go on. There's lakeside talks, there's plays, there's like, it's like this whole retreat. You know, this is kind of like the big shebang at the end of it all, or that sets it off essentially. But this is not the only thing that happens there. So like, here's one of the plays they put on. Another one.
What is that?
So this one is called Pompeii. This is a play that they put on every year. They have a fully choreographed with costume designs, and a whole soundtrack, everything. Every single year, fully produced. They put out hardcover bound books and everything about it.
And these are political, financial leaders. They're acting in the plays.
Yeah, I mean, so it's sort of like an honor to be put in one of these plays with like a speaking part. A lot of the time it's going to be thespians and actors and musicians that are in them, but every once in a while when someone's going to be honored, they'll give them like a role in one of these plays. I'm gonna skip through some way. And this is another really interesting one because this is from Owl's Hoot, which is like a little newsletter that would only be, and this book and all the newsletters would only be given to Bohemian Grove members. The only reason I got this is because someone died and I got it in an estate sale. But this image here where it says you're weaving again, because their motto is weaving spiders, or spiders weave not here. I'm botching that, but their phrase is basically like, don't come here and talk politics, don't talk shop. So this little cartoon is showing like one of the sober spiders telling the drunk spider like, hey, stop talking shop. And that's kind of like the unwritten rule, is that you're supposed to be there to not care about things. That's why they cremate care. Like they're literally burning away their cares of the world. So you're not supposed to talk about worldly things while you're there. You're supposed to just like live in the moment. It's very zen.
Hmm. So do you think there's anything sinister behind this?
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is where like the Manhattan Project got its launch. This is where
Okay, yeah.
this is where like information gets given out to all the elites. This is like insider trading, but with reality. So I think that there's something nefarious about just that in itself. We got some more music here. Here's another one that's taking place. See the big stone owl behind them, and the story is that that stone owl was already there when they went to scout the area out, and they were just like, well, this is perfect. So they just kind of like made that their home base.
Oh, so there's no significant reason why they're so associated with the owl, apart from the
Oh, there,
fact that
there
that was
definitely
there.
is. But I, because represents Minerva and being able to see in the middle of the night, and have, being wise, and also being able to like spin your head on a swivel 360 degrees. All of these things play into that, and it's also in like a lot of media and academia is related to this owl symbolism. And there's so many in here. I'm trying to find a page that has like, it's got George Bush, it's got Walter Cronkite, it's got Richard Nixon. They're all here. So I've got many books on all this, but this really is they're doing like magic tricks, and then right under that they're reenacting the Civil War with the Confederate flag.
This is insane that you've got hold of one of these.
Yeah, this right here, all the lakeside talks, and this is where that insider information gets spread out to everyone. This is also, a lot of people don't know this, but like the Simpsons prophecies, where everyone's like, "Oh, the Simpsons knows what's going to happen before it happens." Well, Mr. Burns, Harry Shearer, that does the voice for Mr. Burns, he's in the Bohemian Grove. He's in the Bohemian Club. So he goes to these lakeside talks and he does hear what's going to happen before it happens. And in fact, when Alex Jones broke into the Bohemian Club back in like the 90s, Harry Shearer was so irritated by this, he created a movie called The Teddy Bear's Picnic, and it's about people trying to infiltrate a teddy bear picnic, and it was like this inside sort of joke that he turned into an entire movie. It's wild, and that movie, Teddy Bear Picnic, is about Alex Jones breaking into the Bohemian Club.
Oh yeah, here, Harry Shearer.
And
I
here's
didn't
another
even
one.
watch this. That's like,
It's not a good movie, but if you know the backstory, it's just
yeah.
interesting that the only reason that movie exists is to take a jab at Alex Jones. Imagine you had that much budget that you could just make an entire movie to be like, you're a jerk. Yeah, so I mean, I feel like Bohemian Grove is incredibly important. Here we go. Here's one of the big pages. So there's George Bush. Here I think I can zoom in too. Yeah. So there's Papa and little baby Bush. You got Newt Gingrich. Um, you've got Lee Lu of Tiananmen Square, I guess, was also in Bohemian Grove. Kind of crazy. And then Walter Cronkite, I think he was around here somewhere, but Walter Cronkite actually was the voice of the narrator. So when they did the cremation of care ceremony and they're talking about burning care, he's the voice that enacts all of that. And he was supposed to be like the guy that like spoke for the American people and the voice of America. This is another one. This one is all about the artwork and the visual arts. Oh, home zoom in again. So yeah, this is all about like the artistry, but there's a really cool section in here about the architecture, and it shows what some of the original Bohemian Grove camps look like, but they're way different now. So here's the examples. So this is like old school. It doesn't look like this anymore. But when they first started, look at this like big watchtower made out of just wood. So originally there was rules that you had to make your encampment out of all natural things. You couldn't import any kind of luxuries from like the real world. You had to stay like au natural. And then here's no more examples. And you can see this book came out in the late 90s. So at this point, like they weren't playing by those same rules. Now they got, like AC, and they've got like nice little lodges, but this is like sort of the remnants of what it used to look like. And
when
then
did it originally start?
I believe the 1800s, late 1800s, and the history of Bohemian Club too. Here, let me switch back to just me. But the history of Bohemian Grove is interesting because it actually started to it was meant to be for the artists. So you've got all these artists that are on the West Coast, and they're kind of getting fed up because all they're doing is they're getting money for like these corporate gigs, right? They don't want to just keep painting billboards and store signs and stuff for like the big corporate or whatever the version of like Woolworths was at that point. So they decide like, hey, let's just get away from everything. We'll go out into the woods. We'll like frolic and play. We'll just do plays and we'll do artwork and we'll just do our own thing away from all these rich jerks that we rely on to like keep us, living. So they go and they do this, and like typical artists, they run out of money very quickly. So at a certain point, on like the third annual Bohemian Grove meeting, they're like, man, we're running out of money. We can't really afford to just go and frolic in the woods for a couple weeks, and we don't have any food or anything cool to bring out there. So someone's like, well, this guy that's been hiring me to do all the stupid billboards and storefronts, like if we invite him and say like he can just kind of be like my guest, he'll be my +1, he'll throw down like a couple grand, right? So that'll let us have this party. So they do that, and they bring Mr. Moneybags, and Mr. Moneybags shows up and he's like, this is awesome. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, what do you call this? Like, oh, it's Bohemian Club. Don't say anything. It's kind of a one-off that we let you in. So it's over. He goes back and he tells all of his other rich friends, and he's like, guys, these guys are having a blast out in the woods. They got parties going. There's music, and they're running out of money. So here's what we're going to do. Like, we're just going to start offering them like, hey, we'll fund your party. You don't have to worry about the money part. Just like make cool plays and make funny costumes and design all this music and just make it like the coolest thing that you could want to do. So of course, the original founders are like, man, this is great. Like, we could just do our thing. And what they don't realize is that slowly over time, they just become like the hired entertainers for the actual money bags that they were originally trying to get away from. That's why they called it the Bohemian Club. They didn't want to be part of this like civilized, business world. They wanted to be bohemians and go back out into nature and just like be artistic and be themselves. And as soon as the money bags get out there, they're like, this is mine now. You work for me. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't notice, I've been paying the bills for this place for the last 3 or 4 years. So actually, I'll invite you back next year. You're not inviting me. I'm inviting you. And that dynamic completely flipped. But that was the original DNA, is that the Bohemian Club was about artists that wanted to get away from like the mundane world and having to work for like the corporate overseers. And then they came in and took it over, and they kept the exact same motif and they do all the same practices. But now it's like the rich and the powerful that are going there to blow off steam, and it's not the artists that are going there to blow off steam.
Oh, that's some good insight, because I didn't have any idea about that. So when we look at what they're doing, like for example today, we look at what they're doing with some of these routines and think, oh my god, that's satanic, that's this, that's that. But really, it's just evolved from sort of the uniqueness that the original founding members of Bohemian Grove were doing.
Well, some of it. So there's another aspect that I think might be a little nefarious here. And again, this is a lot from my friend David Charles Plate. but this is gonna be really out of nowhere. So I'll forgive you guys if you've never even heard of any of these concepts before. But have you ever heard of the Golden Bough, which was a series of books written by Fraser in the in like 1895? Okay, I don't blame you for never hearing about that before. So there's this story. You've heard of Stanley Kubrick, I assume. So there's this story that Stanley Kubrick, he goes to the head of, I think it was like Warner Brothers. I'm going to make that up. It might have been Paramount or someone, but he goes to the head of the studio and he gives them an entire set of the Golden Bough, which is 13 books long. It's this massive, massive set of books. And the books are all about folklore and folktales and just like mythology. And Kubrick, he keeps bugging this guy for like a year. Like, have you read it yet? Have you read it yet? And finally, the guy tells me, he's like, look, Stanley, you know, I'm running like a huge business here. I don't have time to read mythology. And Kubrick responds to him and he says, this is not mythology. This is your life. And this was like such an impactful quote that it made me like look more into it, into like what the Golden Bough is. And even Aleister Crowley writes about the Golden Bough in his, he's got a book about the Thoth deck. And in his description of the Fool card, which is the very first card of the tarot, he makes this whole, I'm going to try to boil it down as best as I can, but the old way was that a king would have a daughter, and then in order for that kingdom to transfer to another person, you'd have to win the hand of the daughter. And in doing so, that was actually like the matriarchy, right? The power is getting passed down through the daughter, not through the son. Because what happens if you pass the power down through the son is now you've got nepotism. You've got, well, that guy's going to be king just because his dad was king, and he was only king because his dad was king. So this kind of inherently breeds corruption. And this is kind of what we have now, right? It's like it's a game of make it, take it. Like if I just made the last basket, I get the ball back. And if you just always make the basket, you never have to give the ball up. That's kind of like the patriarchy. That's the new way. The matriarchy was different because in order to win the hand of the princess, you had to have merit. You had to actually like attract her. You had to impress. Like you had to have a set of skills. It wasn't just like an arranged marriage. And we're talking like old school folklore. But what happens over time is, and the other reason for matriarchy too, is it would eliminate inbreeding, because now anyone that wanted to claim the right to a kingdom would have to come from a foreign land, and they'd usually have to like sneak in somehow, because if you knew that there was this foreigner coming into your country that wanted to marry your daughter and take over your kingdom, you'd be like, yo, you'd make it hard for him, right? You wouldn't just like invite him in. So then they would have to dress up. My favorite example of this is like the Robin Hood, specifically the Disney version of Robin Hood, where he sneaks in as like this stork and he wins the archery contest. So there's the display of merit. And then he wins the hand of Maid Marian, right? And the last step, which didn't make it into the Disney movie, is the final step of the Golden Bough, is that you kill the existing king, because you're not supposed to let the king wither and die, because the health of the king reflects the health of his kingdom. So you don't want a mad king, because if your king goes crazy with dementia, like we were talking about before, then that means the whole kingdom basically has dementia by proxy. So you can't let that happen. You can't let him get just like old and weak, because then the kingdom looks old and weak. So essentially, foreigner comes in, wins a competition, wins the heart and the hand of your daughter, and then essentially he kills you in order to inherit everything, so that you don't just like wither and die. But this is almost like a respectful way of getting killed. It's like an honor killing. And I don't know if you guys have heard of King Kill 33 ritual and like the JFK assassination. So if not, that's where this comes from. It comes from, you want to take out the king when they're powerful and when the kingdom has all the energy that it has at that moment, because that energy gets to transfer. So anyways, this all relates back to Bohemian Grove, because Bohemian Grove is the cremation of care. And what care is this outside stranger that's going to come in and make sure that the kingdom can pass on to the next generation. But if you look at who's in the Bohemian Grove, these are rich, old, powerful guys that are legacy. They don't want some foreigner to come and take all their riches. They want to pass it down to their own offspring, right? They want to keep it in the family. They want to keep it in the club. So the cremation of care is a complete inversion of the natural order of things. They intentionally make sure ritualistically that a foreigner can never make it in, that someone from the outside will never be able to gain everything that they have. And they make sure that that happens. And not only in the occult ritual where they're doing dances and wearing silly outfits, but when they go back out into the real world, they're doing the exact same thing. They're making sure, like, oh, you didn't go to my college. Oh, I don't know your parents. Well, we only have a certain number of slots here and you're not going to fill one of them. It's the exact same thing as this patriarchy, this like nepotism system where I only allow people to get into the place that I'm at if I already knew them and they serve my interest instead of based on merit. So that I think is a nefarious aspect and a very real aspect.
That is interesting, because when you look at society today, you can see that there's so much corruption at a high level. And this has been because we've been through generations of this sort of closed box where it's just been passed down to the next generation, passed down to the next generation, passed down to the next generation. So we're at a point now where the corruption's so apparent and visible to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the MO. Like they want to keep that in play in the same way that anyone would, right? Like you would rather give everything that you've ever earned to your kids and not to just someone that happens to come in and kill you and take it all from you. So there's an obvious like inherent reason for everyone to not want to follow that way, but that is, if you really look at how nature operates on a fundamental level, that's how nature operates, like the survival of the fittest, right? Something comes in and it's better for the job, or it's more it's just more accurate in what it does, and it's gonna basically put you out of business and essentially kill you. But by inverting that, like you're sort of, you know, I won't say an offense to nature, but you're like diverting the natural order of things in a very intentional way. And not only are you doing it in reality, but you're doing like a magical occult ritual complete with, you know, like all of the ritualistic fire and you know, worshiping ancient pagan deities, and like they're doing all of the things even if they don't believe in it. Like they're doing every single step that someone that did believe in it would be doing.
So, you've told us some extremely uh, interesting insights into like Illuminati and Bohemian Grove. Now, I wanted to say this a bit earlier, or talk about this a bit earlier, but we've just been having such a good conversation. It's been hard to fit it in. But you've got paranoidamerican.com, which I've not actually read one of these comics. Me and Aaron both are gonna place an order because they look insane. They look so fun. But I mean, do you want to tell the audience a bit about what you do on Paranoid American, and then we'll just follow up with some questions that we've got about it too.
Yeah, man. I started Paranoid American when I was working at Disney. I worked at Disney for 10 years, doing all sorts of game design and animation and anything that I could get my fingers in. And while I was there, I've always been a conspiracy theorist. And I just remember one day to my left, I had someone that had worked on The Lion King. And then to my right, I had someone that was doing like the actual sort of in park amusement design, like what the rides did and all this stuff. And I just remember thinking, like, what if I got these guys to help me with something like MK Ultra related? Like I didn't have a specific idea, but instead of, you know, the Disney programming, what if we legit talk about MK Ultra? And it kind of started from there, and it morphed into a series called Time Samplers. That was my very first series, and you can see all the DNA in there of all the stuff that we're talking about, because in the very first issue of Time Samplers, it talks about silent weapons for quiet wars, harp, V2K, which is voice to skull technology. And they go back in time to the Federal Reserve, to Jekyll Island, where they're founding the Federal Reserve. And it talks about Skull and Bones. It talks about the Jekyll Island Hunt Club. It talks about J.P. Morgan, Alexander Graham Bell, the Harriman brothers, like all the names, all the big ones. And then issue 2, they actually infiltrate the Skull and Bones, and they see an actual Skull and Bones ritual, and they get chased through the tomb. So it's like every issue is about a very specific conspiracy theory and all the research that I could cram into it, but done in a way where at no point do you feel like you're reading research. Like you're just reading a silly comic book, and it seems so silly because there's like talking sheep and there's psychedelic time travel and there's like all these silly jokes. But it's, if you actually look into any of this, it's like, oh wow, all this is true. Even down to the main villain in the first issue is a nude Alexander Graham Bell. And that's not just out of coincidence, because Alexander Graham Bell was a prominent nudist of his time. He was a proponent of nudism. A lot of people don't realize that. And I find that fascinating. So any like weird little factual tidbit that I find in my research, it goes into a comic book. And that's kind of where all the comics come from, is when I hit a critical mass of like, I can't believe how crazy all this is. Okay, turn this into a comic book.
Right, that's insane. That's so interesting. So the guys that you worked at Disney with, the guy on Lion King and then the guy that worked with in the parks, are they working with you now still?
No, I mean, I couldn't afford either of them. And even when I had that realization, I didn't hire either of those guys. One, I
Okay.
can't remember I can't remember his name off the top of my head, that was the animator at Lion King. The other guy that was doing the in-park designs was Jesse Schnell, who wrote a book called the Theory of Game Design, I think. Like he's big news in like the game design industry. I didn't get either of them, but I worked with a lot of people daily that were incredibly talented. So I got them to start doing sketches. In fact, one of the guys that I worked at with Disney is the one that made the Time Samplers logo. So whenever you see that, that was also made by, a Disney illustrator. But yeah, at this point, I can't afford anyone that actually worked at Disney on any major project.
When did you leave Disney? When did you stop working for Disney?
Around 2016. I started there in 2006, so I was there for about a decade, and I worked there on property in the back lot of what they called Hollywood Studios. By the time before that, it was MGM Studios, and before that, it was something else. But this is where like Tower of Terror, the Rock and Roller Coaster, all the Star Wars rides, the Toy Story ride, all that is basically right where I worked in the animation building.
And then now you do a series on YouTube called Occult Disney. Is that something that you sort of did because of what you picked up on from working there, or?
Actually, no, man. I mean, when I was working there, it was like a job. Like I was way too busy just doing regular work to get like wrapped up in too much of the occult stuff. And it's not like we watched Disney movies all the time just because we were at Disney. You know what I mean? We had other stuff we were doing. Um, but I started that one because I did a show with Sam Tripoli on Tinfoil Hat about Fantasia in particular, and this theory that Fantasia is an actual magical ritual where the Disney company brings Disney and Mickey and just all their IP into existence, into an actual reality that is just as real as our own, evidenced by all of the profit they make and all of the headspace that they've got in people's brains, right? Anyone in the Western world that thinks about like Pinocchio, if I just say Pinocchio out loud, you're probably thinking of the Disney's version of Pinocchio. So they own like a very real sort of real estate in everyone's brain when you bring up basically open source, like public domain stories, Cinderella, Snow White, Pinocchio, Jungle. I say any of these, and it's all Disney that probably comes up in someone's head.
Because I was listening to, I heard someone talking about the Daily Wire remaking Snow White, and I was thinking in my head, I'm sure Snow White is a Disney thing. How can they remake it? And then I realized actually Snow White's just a fairy tale. It's not
Right, but they
Disney.
own that particular version of Snow White. So if they wanted to give her like a similar outfit or like a similar hairstyle, then now maybe you're dancing with Disney's lawyers, and they got more lawyers than most people do. And Disney is also set more legal precedents than almost any other creative company in existence still, right? Like they've actually stood up and tried to protect all their IP in court so many times that they're kind of like, that's like their second home is probably in a courtroom, right? So anyone that wants to butt up against that, so really you're gonna have to stray completely off it, which isn't hard, but also this is like a, I don't want to say nefarious, but Disney movies would intentionally change a lot about the original source material. Almost every single movie takes a dramatic turn from what it was originally based on. So now Daily Wire or anyone else fill in the blank wants to remake a classic story tale. Like it's not gonna be the same story that Disney told, because it can't be, because Disney owns that version of it. Like a good example would be Beauty and the Beast, and Little Mermaid's another one. But Beauty and the Beast, the original story, Belle's dad is the king, and the Beast isn't necessarily like the one that actually runs that kingdom. This goes back to that golden bough, because originally the Beast was gonna get the maiden and then kill the king and take over his kingdom. But in the Disney version, Belle's dad's just like some inventor, right? He's not a king. He's no one really important. So it takes that aspect out of it. So now if you wanted to remake Beauty and the Beast and you don't make Belle's dad the king like in the original story, then maybe you're infringing a little bit on Disney, because Disney's the one that changed that part of the story. But also now when you play it, people are going to be like, well, this isn't Beauty and the Beast. Belle's dad wasn't the king. And this is because Disney has like reprogrammed you to think that like that's how the original story went. So it's wild how they do that, but it's like once Coca-Cola defines what cola tastes like, and then someone gives you like RC or like some other type, you're like, oh, that's not cola. You're like, well, you're just really acclimated to a specific type of flavor, and you're just gonna discount everything else because you're so acclimated to that. And I don't know. We'll see if Daily Wire runs into that or not.
Well, also there's Winnie the Pooh, right? They released the new Winnie the Pooh movie, which is like a
Yeah, Blood and Honey, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah. But so that's another example where like they didn't actually retell the story. They just took IP that no one would care about except for that Disney had put so much money and energy into it that now everyone knows who Winnie the Pooh is. So then they just play off the name without touching all the other stuff. But I don't know if you've seen the movie. Like, in my opinion, it's like a horrible movie. Like, it's not actually, there's no real merit to it. They're just playing off the concept that it happens to be IP that you've heard of.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, because it sells, right? People see it and think, "Oh my god, what?" Because a lot of people won't be looking at that. What we're looking at, that right? Disney own A, B, and X, Y, and Z of Winnie the Pooh story. A lot of normal people see it and think, like, they'll put that connection together and think, "Oh, Disney have made this movie to try." So then they'll sell more tickets. People go and watch it and be like, "What the fuck's going on here? Like, this is the weirdest thing ever."
Or just for the novelty of like, oh, I want to see a horror movie that happens to have Disney characters in it, right? But it's Disney's the one that gave value to Winnie the Pooh for anyone to make a Hollywood movie out of it. No one would have cared about that if it weren't juxtaposed against Disney, right?
Right, yeah. So, with you being an ex-employee of Disney, what are your thoughts and feelings on Disney as a company?
I mean, it's a big conglomerate monster machine that just chews people up and spits them out essentially. Um, but it's also th- this will be a strained example here, but like when I was first starting at Disney, this is before the iPad existed, right? And I don't know if anyone even remembers this, but Microsoft was actually trying to be the first one to market with one of these big touchscreen interfaces, but they didn't have a tablet. They had a freaking table. It was like a massive, like 300-pound plus table, and it was called the Microsoft table, I think, or the Microsoft Surface or something. And I remember they had a guy come in and present this to us at Disney because they were trying to sell them to the parks so that they would be in like the lobby of all the hotels or whatever. But I remember asking, it was like, what's like, why would we need Microsoft to come and do this? Because I could go online right now and find all these articles on like how to make your own for, like $300 instead of 30,000 that they were charging per table. And he made a great point that I've never forgot. And he was like, it's not necessary that Microsoft has to own the technology or do it better, but we've got so much money and reach that we can take this concept that no one even understands, and we're one of the only companies on the planet that can afford to do what you would call like customer education, where like, here's a new product that you've never seen or heard about before. You don't really understand it. We're going to tell you how it works. And just that push alone is what gives Microsoft or Apple or anyone so much more value than just the product itself. Because you could have made the iPhone, right? But trying to explain it to everyone, like what it is and why they would want it, it would have taken a lifetime and just infinite resources. But when you're a huge company that everyone already kind of trusts you a little bit, now you can usher in these crazy, like, world changing technologies way easier. So I think that that's where Disney has this big role, where it's not necessarily they're the best or the greatest or they hire the best people, although they can afford to, but they've got the massive reach where if Disney were like, hey, we're going to try this new thing and see how kids like it, they've got the attention of every child on the planet, essentially, if they wanted it. And there's no other companies that really have that sort of a reach. So it's a little bit exciting, but it's also absolutely terrifying. And it definitely jaded me. I remember one meeting when because I remember growing up in the 80s and the 90s specifically, it was like, don't even write your real name online. Like, make up a number and a word and don't ever tell anyone that you're even a real person, right? And so as I'm going through Disney, they were talking about like Club Penguin was big. I don't know, people don't realize Disney owned Club Penguin for a while. They were trying to make like another version of Club Penguin, and they were pitching all these ideas, and it was like, yeah, we'll know their favorite color and their favorite food and their favorite song, and we'll make it so that when they log in, it's like their penguin just made them their favorite sandwich or whatever. And I was asking, like, well, wait a minute, like, we're not really allowed to ask, children, like, you're not allowed to ask minors anything identifiable about themselves in order to register. And I remember the Disney exec, he's like, oh, no, that's not a problem. He's like, we're not allowed to ask them, but if they want to tell us, then there's no law against that. And they were explaining to me, like, you must be from the 90s, right? Because this new wave of kids, like, they want their website to know about their favorite song so that next time they go there, it plays it for them. So it turned into this thing where, like, it's not that you're requiring me to give you information about me to register. It's like, I can just register with an anonymous name. But if you want the ultimate experience, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite color? Where does your mommy work? What day, when do they get off? Like, and once you can start drilling down into that, and I remember just like, isn't that a security issue? And it's like, nah, these kids are falling over themselves to give us this personal information. And as long as they want to give it to us, and it's not like we want to take it from them, then there's no harm done. And in fact, it makes them trust us even more, because it's like, I told you my favorite, snack was cookies, and now my penguin has a cookie in his hand. I'm all in. Like, give me the jab and give me the free donut. That was kind of and I remember at that particular meeting, I was like, man, I work for Skynet, don't I? Like, I work for the Empire.
Yeah. Yeah, now look at everyone now. Like, we're stuffing our information into our computers for as much
We can't stop
convenience as
fast,
possible.
bro. Like people are just like, upload all my contacts, just tell everyone about everything I know. Here's my YouTube history. And it's all just so that, like, show me the ads that are more relevant to me. I don't want to keep seeing coffee ads. Show me something more relevant. And that's kind of what it is, man. So anyway, long version of that is that is Disney. Disney's got not only all the info on you and your kids, but they also own nostalgia, which is insane to think about. Like, imagine any other company that owns as much nostalgia as Disney. I can't think of one. They've got Marvel, they've got Star Wars, they've got folklore that comes from like your great 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 grandparents. So any connection that you have with like the highest chains in your family tree, there's probably a Disney connection there that's stronger than any other connection.
Hmm. That is yeah, very actually worrying when
It's
you look at
insane
it.
when you think about it. Especially when you mentioned folklore. They literally own the rights to folklore.
Well, and like, even if they don't own the legal rights, again, if I say Pinocchio, if I say Beauty and the Beast, if I say Little Mermaid, are you thinking of Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid illustrations? Probably not. You're probably thinking of the Disney Renaissance, Ariel with the red hair and the Jamaican crab, right?
And it's almost as if, because they've got so much money, and if you're looking at it from the point of view that you're describing there, that they own nostalgia, and then they own all of the information that majority of children are sort of consuming, well, at least in the Western world, as the generations grow up, they can just acquire more businesses to like acquire more of the sort of the realm of what that person lives in. So, for example, like if we grew up watching Spider-Man, which wasn't actually owned by um, Disney back then, but as we grew up, they then got ownership of it. So then, when we're watching it now as a bit of a nostalgia for us, as a different generation, they don't own it. So then, the things that kids start out watching now, Disney could just buy further down the line, And I know for a fact, like gaming, for example, like there's a generation coming up now that are massive gamers, and they're going to want that nostalgia hit when they hit 19, 20 years old. And I can imagine Disney owning a huge part of the gaming world at that point in time.
Yeah, and also like the theme park world, they've kind of got that too. So if you really want pure escapism for your like, I'm trying to think of how to best describe this, but what other form of escapism can you give your 2-year-old, your 12-year-old, your 20-year-old, and 90-year-old grandma? Like the exact same flavor of escapism. You can all buy the exact same ticket and all get the same sort of like escape from reality. There's very little other places outside of and I don't just mean like going to a Disney park, but I just mean like Disney in general. Even if you hate Disney, you could probably go to a classic movie and think back like, oh, when I was 7, this was great, and like my grandma was still alive, and like it taps into that nostalgic factor, and that feels like one of the most potent and powerful things you could own. And not to go on too much of a tangent on this, but since you were talking about like how interesting Disney owning that folklore is, it's also predominantly Germanic folklore, and a lot of it came from Grimm fairy tales. And Grimm fairy tales, they were historians before they were storytellers. They were actually like the official sources of information on all of like the ancient Germanic customs for the longest time. And they realized that folklore was an important aspect of that culture and history. So what they did is they made it a mission to start going around all throughout Germany and talking to, like, they would go out into the middle of the woods and find like a cabin out in the middle of the woods and knock on the door and basically like, tell me all your stories. Tell me the stories your grandma used to tell you when you were a kid, right? And they made a full index of all this. And without the Grimm brothers doing that, we might not have even heard about like over half of these well-known children's stories today. But also without the Grimm brothers doing that, there might not have even been a renaissance of German culture, which kind of sort of led into, I want to say, like World War I, World War II. And further than that, if it weren't for Walt Disney in particular taking Grimm fairy tales books and then repurposing them and making them into movies, then there might not have even been a World War II, because that resurgence of like getting people interested into Germanic folklore, that's what was like, maybe the Germans are like a super people. Like, we've got a lot of history that we should be proud of. We should be really proud of this. In fact, we should be so proud. We should start like a whole political movement that's just about how like that original German blood might be better than all this other European blood. So, I mean, if you just put the pieces together, if the Grimms had never compiled stories, then the Germanic Renaissance might have never happened. And even if it did, if Disney hadn't thrown fuel on that fire, maybe World War II might not have necessarily gotten the same amount of, because they wouldn't have been so invigorated to like embrace their culture that they had basically had forgotten for, a century before that. Like the Grimm really did reinvigorate people and like, hey, we've actually got a Germanic culture here. Again, I'm oversimplifying to make a point, but I mean, without Disney, maybe there would have been no Hitler.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is insane. That you've just pieced that together. It's got legs as well. Like
It does, man. If you look into it, the Grimm brothers, like without them, so many of this would have been lost to history, and then Germany would have just been like, whatever. Call us France. Call us whatever you want. We're fine. We're Bavaria. Who cares?
Yeah, which has probably happened so many times that people. It's happened that many times people can't even recall it, but because these guys brought it back up, it brought up all of the. It brought up wounds with it because, that's insane. So with your comics on paranoidamerican.com, have you got anything else in the works coming up?
Yeah. So let me see right here. This is my latest one. Is called Frazzle Drip Funhouse, and if you want to know what that was, just Google Frazzle Drip. But it's an American conspiracy theory. But this is the whole goal of this comic was essentially to make Frazzle Drip a term that people will be like, what does that mean? And maybe search for it. But Frazzle Drip Funhouse is like a love letter to 80s and 90s slasher horror films. So it's like over the top gore and violence and cheesy one-liners and just like completely lacking any real taste, except for having really awesome artwork and action in it.
Yeah,
So
just
this is
artwork, even the cover looks insane.
and here's the alternate cover that's only available to backers on Indiegogo. And this is actually going to end in like the next 6 or 7 hours, I think. So you can grab a copy printed right now, and it'll come signed with a bunch of extra stuff. This is one of my, I think I've got like 50 titles right now. This is the newest one that's about to come out. I've also got one that I've been working on with Sam Tripoli from Tinfoil Hat. On the other end of the spectrum, the one I'm working on with him is for kids. It's like totally the opposite of a frazzle drip, bear that rips your face off. So the other one is a nice, friendly children's book, family friendly, about two twin girls that basically team up with cryptids and sort of paranormal interdimensional beings, and they fight against a reptilian corporation that weaponizes nostalgia. Sound kind of familiar after we were just talking about Disney for a while.
Yeah.
But that's the premise of Chaos Twins, of these two girls that realize that this corporation is using nostalgia against all the adults and against all their parents, and they're trying to like break that spell in a way. And that one's been exploding. It's been trending as the #1 comic on the Indiegogo site. We needed to raise like 3,500, and it looks like by the end of this weekend it'll probably hit like 10 grand. So we're gonna blow this one out. We really want to make it like an animated series, like legitimate cartoon, and maybe pitch it and stuff. But that's way down the line. That's another big one. I've got another, I'll announce it here too, but I've got a series that'll be coming out either late December, early January, very limited, like maybe 20 issues just to kind of like seed it. But it's called Illuminati, but it's Naughty, and it's an all adult series, like a mature series, like a sexy series that's all conspiracy related adult comics. So for example, I don't know if you guys have heard of John Dee and Edward Kelly before.
No.
It's like John Dee, the original 007. He was the occult assistant to the Queen, and he's also responsible, I think, for what a lot of people consider Enochian magic, which are like all the sigils and being able to scry into the future. So there's a story that John Dee, he's like 70, and he's got like a 30-something-year-old wife named Jane Dee, John and Jane. But he's got all these old arcane books that he can't necessarily decipher, and he calls this guy Edward Kelly, who was like this world-renowned alchemist. He was claimed to know the actual ingredients to make the Philosopher's Stone, and he had this magic red powder that had all these magical properties. But he invites Edward Kelly over to basically talk to angels. They want to summon an angel, and they summon this angel named Uriel. And essentially John Dee is like, tell me what he's saying, because John Dee can't summon angels, but he hires Edward Kelly to summon the angel. So Edward Kelly's kind of like the translator between this invisible angel that he can't see. So Edward Kelly summons the angel, and he's telling him like, hey, John, like, I'm talking to Uriel now. Yeah, everything's cool. But he's telling me that I need to sleep with your wife. And then John's like, hey man, if the angel is saying that this needs to happen, then like who am I to debate with an angel, right? This is coming straight from God. So they end up swapping wives and doing this like a few different times, but it's all in the premise of like, I'm not here to bang your wife. I'm here because I'm going to talk to angels, and the angels making me do this thing, and I guess I'll do it. Like she's kind of hot, but I'll do it anyways. So I wrote a comic book about that illustrates all of that in graphic detail from start to end, along with like 8 or 9 other stories like that. So that's going to be a whole ongoing series.
Right, that's insane. That's so cool.
So you write comic books, and we've spoken about folklore. So I've got a question: how important do you think storytelling is, and how important do you think it is for information and knowledge that we've acquired be passed down to generations?
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing. And I guess some of this is just drilled into me from working at Disney, where like literally everything has to be a story, and it has to have a backstory, and everything's got to have motives and stuff. But if you think about it, like storytelling is occult hermetic art. Like if you give someone just pure facts and information, that whole concept of like the game of telephone, right? If I give you something specific and you pass it along, when it gets back to you, it sounds completely different. But if I give you something that's already really abstract, then it actually can retain that information even longer, and it can be more flexible. Because then even if it changes, as long as the core concept, if there's like a moral story, or if I'm telling you Aesop's fables, and the essential story is that the slow and steady wins the race, right? That the tortoise wins over the rabbit. If you retell that, as long as the story is that this slow thing beat this fast thing, then it doesn't matter that all the other details got lost in the mix, right? And that's something that's so unique about storytelling, that if the story is strong enough and the characters are strong enough, then you can change their names and their locations and their accents, and you can change every single thing about them as long as the actual mechanics of the story itself remain intact. And that seems to me impossible to do, just outright impossible to do with straight up facts and numbers and like math equations. But as a story, if a child can hear it and retell it to one of their friends and retain that same thing, that's incredibly powerful. And it also reflects a much higher order of thinking. Because if I give you exact instructions, or I tell you like this exact fact, that's great for you to be able to like regurgitate it, but it's really hard for you to take that information and adapt it to something else that's unrelated that you don't know. And then like a good example of this is that if you meet somebody that isn't like an outright expert in a certain field, then they don't necessarily have to know every other field out there, but they can take what they're an expert in and then draw correlations between a completely different thing. So like if you're like just a great painter, like an artist or something, a lot of the times they can transfer their skills into sculpting, even if they've never sculpted before, right? Or like make a rug. Like the rug they make is going to be amazing because they still understand the concepts of color theory and proportion and gestalt. So all of those things are abstract, right? If I teach you like this one painting, like the perspective of that, but I don't actually tell you like why the perspective matters or why repetition and gestalt matters, then you can just repeat this one trick. But if you understand the why behind it, which is way more abstract, then you can repeat it and you can improve on it. So you only get that with storytelling in my mind. You won't get that outside of storytelling.
Yeah, and it's like communication is the only way I can get a thought in my head to then appear in your head. So via the use of storytelling is the only way of getting a thought to someone else. And when you say like without all these numbers and graphs and all of these statistics and all of that sort of stuff, there's so often like I work in marketing, and so often when you can't present to someone all of this information and expect them to understand it because they've got nothing to cling onto. They've got no, you need to add in things that they can cling onto in terms of experiences in their lives. And that's where storytelling really hits a spot. And I think even when you're watching movies that, like a Tarantino movie or something along the lines, he's got these really sort of crazy ways of telling the story that different people will pick up on different parts of the story in sort of different ways. Because I know if I watch a Tarantino film and then Aaron was to watch the same one, we would have like different opinions on the story, on what he said and where he's sort of taking us. We'll have differing opinions on how it made us feel, what we thought about it, and so on and so forth. But he's still sending us the same message, which we both sort of understand together. So it's about like sort of attaching yourself to different experiences that people have within the stories.
That's another great point too, is that like just a straight up fact has like one way of interpreting it. But if you tell a story, different people can take a lot of different things from that are just as meaningful for different reasons, right? But it's that same concept doesn't necessarily exist the same way as just a regular old statistic or like a formula.
Yeah, and it's like you said, with the storytelling, it's like you can teach someone to fish or you can give them a fish. If you're teaching them to fish, they're going to be able to evolve on it. They're going to be able to change it. They're going to be able to make it sort of fit with them more. They might like a different type of fish, so they're not just having the one that you give them. So then they can go and fish elsewhere because they know how to fish. And then with storytelling, it's like, I guess this it kind of works from where we're at the moment with society and with the sort of stuff that's pushed down our necks through news. It's just them saying, this person is bad, this person's done this person's done that. We're not hearing anything else about it apart from this person bad, this person bad, this person good. Like, but then if they were to give us a story, a full story of what's happened before, what's happened now, why it's happened. I mean, look at some of these wars, for example. If they were to give us a bigger story of different people that are involved, we would have a completely different opinion on them just saying, here is what's happened. This is bad.
There's another good. I don't know if this was Daily Wire or not, but there was a huge phenomenon in the U.S. at least. Netflix released this series called "Making a Murderer." I think it was called. Have you seen it? You're familiar with it?
Yeah.
So recently, I think it was Daily Wire, but Candace Owens has a show that is basically like the inverse of Making a Murderer. She like covers how Netflix covered that Making a Murderer story and then repaints it of like, and here's maybe why he was guilty, right? Because the whole Netflix thing was that the cops were corrupt and this guy was innocent and they didn't have any of the evidence and stuff. And if you watch the Netflix version, it's really easy to come away with like, man, that guy got a raw deal and this is an injustice in the system. And I don't have an opinion either way. But then this new series that came out this year from Candace Owens where she says the opposite. She's like, okay, I know you've seen the Netflix series because everyone's seen it, and here's what you probably think, but here's the things that they didn't tell you, and here's all these like other things that happened that didn't really make for the compelling case that Netflix was trying to make. So it's the same, like they're both painting this story, right? Like Netflix didn't just come out and say, here's the victim, here's the accused, here's the verdict, the end, because that would be like the factual version of stuff. But instead it's like, let's tell this story. So I love this because the Candace Owens one's like, okay, yeah, let's tell a story. But hers is like from a different perspective, but stating the same people, places, times, dates, and things, right?
Yeah. It's like, have you seen the Y files on YouTube?
The what files? The
The
Y
Y
files?
files,
No, I haven't.
WHY files. So he basically does these 30 to 40 minute long videos talking about a conspiracy theory from where it started all the way through to where it's at now. And he goes into like ultimate detail of the conspiracy theory. And then he'll just do 5 minutes at the end, which is just a little bit more information that he's added on to sort of circle out the whole sort of story he's telling on debunking it. And in my opinion, because you could watch the whole conspiracy theory part and be like, holy shit, he's right, this theory makes sense 100%, there's nothing else that could possibly change my mind. But he'll just put 5 minutes at the end saying, but then there's this reason why it could be wrong, there's this reason, and then you're like, right, it's probably wrong.
Yeah, honestly, conspiracy theories are way more fun and outrageous at that like superficial level. Like if you just hear or just read the title, because once you start digging in, like some of them are legitimately crazy the more you go. Like we were talking about adrenochrome, that one legitimately kept getting more and more crazy as I looked into it, just because I was expecting to disprove everything. But so many other ones, you look into it and it takes a lot of the magic out, and it's like, oh, maybe it's just because human beings are complicated and nobody ever necessarily fits into like Superman or the Red Skull, right? Like it doesn't necessarily work that way. And some people, like, I don't know, you've probably have friends and family that you like love and trust, but you've seen them on a bad day and they do like some horrendous things that are out of character, but like that doesn't necessarily define them forever. Now, I'm not going to say that means that like Bill Gates is absolved of all of his sins or anything, right? But it doesn't mean that someone like comes out of the womb and they're just like immediately going to be world dominating person. So that and like the conspiracy theories, when you have to do the research, a lot of that nuance comes up, and then it's like, are they good? Are they bad? I mean, most of the time they are kind of bad, though.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Sometimes, well, when they get debunked, it's a bit anticlimactic, right? You go and look into this new thing that you think you've just found out about, which sounds crazy off the first sentence, and then you go and do tiny bit of research, and you're like, oh, it's naturally.
A big one in the early 2000s. I never liked this one. This one always irritated me, but people would have a picture of someone on TV, and because of the digital compression, they'd like blink or something, and like the eye would look weird. And be like, there's a reptile. Like, we got them. They were shape shifting right out of existence, and we like that split second when they shift out of reality and back into it. Like, we got them. Finally, there's proof. And then it was like, yeah, but if you understand how MPEG compression works, where it's got this like preset define of shapes, and then to compress it, it just assigns like, okay, what's on the screen kind of look like this shape, so we'll use that. And it's like every once in a while, because of just regular, like, I'm sure that Aaron and Cam, you've probably seen each other at one point when it got blocky, right? And where you were like, aha, I knew it. Like, you've been a reptilian shapeshifter the entire time. But to sit down and be like, actually, let's learn about how MPEG-2 compression works. Here's the compression index. Here's what keyframes are. No one wants to sit around for 4 hours and learn about the intricacies of a video compression format, right? But if you just say, look, there's a reptilian because the eyes look funny, and someone retweets it, like, that didn't take 4 hours. It took 4 seconds, and it's fun, and it gives you a little dopamine push. But if you sit down and read about MPEG-2 compression in a textbook and the math theory behind it, like, you're not getting any dopamine hits out of that, you know, that you're going to slog through that thing for what reason? Just to disprove a cool thing that gained your interest. And at the end of it, you're going to be like, oh, that's not fun anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because like with modern technology now, we're not seeing. I mean, when you look at people like seeing ghosts and stuff in film, it's always the old stuff, or old cameras, old. Like,
yeah, because not a lot of people have it anymore. So now it's like, well, if there's ghosts, then and everyone has a camera in their pocket, how come we don't see like way more ghosts than ever before on video and backed up? It's like, oh well, because they only show up on like the old cameras that no one uses anymore. Which, like, okay, but why? You know, like, what's the actual math or the science behind that? And how come then why weren't they at that point like, oh no, the ghosts don't show up for these newfangled cameras. They only show up for the guys using like the pinhole and like drawing it by hand, right? Like they don't even show up in front of the camera because the camera steals your soul, and they are a soul. So I mean, it'll never end. I guarantee you in like 50 years they're gonna have like some holographic, you know, AR thing that just like captures your entire environment, and they'll be like, "Oh no, ghosts don't show up for those. They would have shown up for your old iPhone, but not for this like holographic." Right?
There was this thing I saw. It went viral on. It must have gone viral on TikTok. I don't really use TikTok, but I saw it on Instagram, and you know, the Mandela effect, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Mandela effect, where like the false memory.
Yeah, so this guy had this phone, which was from, I think it was like from 2003 or 2004 or something. Or this, like, it had one of the first phones that had a camera on, that came with a camera. I don't know what year they were. And basically, he was watching YouTube of like these, I think one of them was like a Britney Spears video where it was like she had a certain outfit on back then, and now she's got a different outfit on. And he was putting the phone over it and then recording his phone. And he was like, look, the phone's showing a different outfit because this phone was from before the time it changed. And it was going viral, and everyone was like, oh my God, like, I didn't know the phones from back then could do that. And I was like, it's a camera. It's not doing anything else apart from projecting the light, what's going into the lens. But so many people are like believing it.
My skepticism is directly related to capitalism, because I really do believe that in this day and age, if someone had a camera that could do, let's say the Britney Spears example, like, right, because that's easier to conceptualize than ghosts. So if this dude had a camera that was from like a different timeline that then revealed this, why wouldn't you charge like $1,000 for someone to come up and see this magical phone that has a supernatural quantity to it? Oh, it only works when I do it. Like, if I've got another observer, it stops working. And I think about that too with ghosts. We're like, are you telling me there's no PT Barnum modern day that would trap a ghost just to sell tickets, or just to like make a TikTok ghost account that would promote, like weight loss products or something. Like that of course would exist, because in this capitalist society, if a ghost existed, there would be at least one person out there that's like, I can become rich by exploiting that ghost. And the fact that that hasn't happened yet is the best proof that ghosts don't exist than anything else that I can think of. Like, you don't even have to bring science or philosophy or religion into it. You could just say, then how come someone's not pimping ghosts right now?
Yeah,
Like,
these greedy people aren't utilizing it properly.
That's so true. Why is there no zoo with ghosts, just of ghosts?
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's what P.T. Barnum specialized in, right? He would go out and find and make like freak shows and stuff. Like he would, I don't know. To me, that's the number one proof of almost all of the supernatural claims. Like, how come we don't have somebody that's selling Bigfoot jerky for $20,000 a pouch, because it's like the rarest meat on earth, right?
Yeah, Bigfoot jerky. Oh, yeah, that's true. That is true. That's a good idea. When you're looking at anything which is sort of not even just supernatural, but anything that's out extraordinary. Look at why people aren't profiting on it, because the only way anything is ever real is if some greedy person profits off it. That's when you know.
Well, and there's that saying of follow the money, and this is like the inverse of that, right? Like, if this is true, then who's making money off of it? And if no one's making money off of it, then maybe it's not true. It doesn't mean that it's not, but there's a lesser chance that I'm going to believe it's a real thing if there's not some JP Morgan out there that's like making a quick buck because of it.
Yeah, I guess the scary thing now is like there's that many lies that are out there that people are now profiting off. It gets a bit fuzzy.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'd rather people pay other humans to lie to them than to pay computers to lie to them. So at least it's like, human produced lies.
Yeah, still a real lie. Yeah.
Yeah, they're organic lies, not artificial lies.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much, Thomas, for this. Has been great. I haven't laughed this much on a podcast for quite a few.
I'm glad, man. Glad we can laugh
really
about,
good.
people taking over the planet and ghosts and.
If you can't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you for coming on. We'll leave your website, links to your podcast and everything in the descriptions of everything we do. Is there any? So with the comics, if someone's new to coming over to your website, I mean, even us, for example, where would you want them to start with the comics? Which one would you recommend people start with?
So I've got a bunch of different projects. The first one is Time Samplers. So Time Samplers I refer to as like my kitchen sink comic. It's got a little bit of everything. It touches on lots of different conspiracy theories. If you're not hardcore into conspiracy theories, it'll still be an entertaining read. If you're like super deep in the conspiracy theories, you're going to see so many little Easter eggs and little rabbit holes and like references that like most people would just gloss over, but you'll be like, oh my God, like that's from this book so all that stuff is in there. And Time Samplers touches on, like I said, Jekyll Island. It touches on the Titanic, Skull and Bones, MK Ultra, Project Monarch, just like anything you can think of that's a little bit maybe more like American conspiracy related. I've got another one that's a little bit more philosophical called Secret Mystery School. And the premise of that one is almost like these stoner college kids accidentally become enlightened because they take just the right blend of mushrooms and DMT and whatnot. And they accidentally become truly enlightened for a split moment in time. But when they do that, they ascend to this next level of ascended masters. So they're next to Plato and Socrates and Diogenes and like all of these, titans from history. But then they come down and they're stuck in this land of enlightenment, and they have to become truly enlightened to come back to earth and like back to normal reality. But it's basically like a stoner comic about secret teachings and mystery schools and everything. I've got coloring books for kids. I've got a children's book on chemtrails called The Confounding Conspiracy of Chemtrails that breaks down. It's like over 50 pages, fully illustrated, like a legit children's book. yeah, I recommend all those ones, and then the new Chaos Twins with Sam Tripoli's big, and then aside from all the comics, I've got custom toys and stickers and apparel. But like, here's an example, like you won't find this anywhere else. This is a custom adrenochrome party pack, and inside it, it's got, I mean, it's thick. It's a big boy. It's got all kinds of goodies, but it's got like 10 different adrenochrome stickers and art prints. It's got a key, like a Room 237 keychain, which is a little homage to The Shining and Kubrick. It's got, I don't want to spoil out what else is in there because it's supposed to be a secret, but yeah. And I've got a bunch of like Lego sets coming out next year. Not Lego, I can't call it Lego compatible sets. There's going to be one Stanley Kubrick directing the moon landing. I've got a Hillary Clinton adrenochrome one. I've got a COVID Bat Lab play pack. So I'm just hoping to like be the one-stop shop for entertaining conspiracy entertainment. Like none of the doom and gloom and all of the fun and dick jokes.
Yeah.
That sounds sick, man.
Yeah, that is quite possibly the best way to go about this at this moment in time, because there's so much like fear being just driven into us. So you're making it lighthearted. You're teaching people, but then letting them have a laugh. Like the conversation's been. It's a good reflection of what you're doing with Paranoid American.
Yeah, I'm glad I try to make it entertaining. I guess my thought behind all of this is like, if you could sit down and be entertained by a Disney or a Marvel movie where you're just learning about like completely fictional circumstances, fictional people, things that didn't really happen. There could be archetypes and correlations to, just like that storytelling as above, so below concept. But if someone's going to sit down and care about, Captain America or, Thor or Aquaman, then I could probably make them care about the Federal Reserve or MK Ultra or Skull and Bones. Like, there's no reason why Skull and Bones can't be just as interesting and nefarious as the Red Skull. If anything, the Skull and Bones is like the real Red Skull, right? The Red Skull was just Marvel's version of something that really existed. So I really truly believe that fact is stranger than fiction, and it's more interesting. So this is an attempt to make like facts more interesting than, regular comics.
Yeah, and I think that it's a good time as well, because what I've definitely noticed is a lot of the entertainment which you would previously have watched for escapism, you kind of can't really watch it with the same sort of eyes that you would have previously, because you're just like, there's this agenda behind it, they're trying to push this on me, it's done by these guys who are just crazy people. So you're sort of watching things and you're just like, I'm not enjoying this anymore just because I know the roots of where it all comes from, and it's not necessarily the nicest roots. So then I'm like, I prefer looking at sort of real world things, but then you can't constantly be just watching podcasts and documentaries. You need to sort of have you need the right blend of like realism and escapism. And I guess this
you need
is
some
where
storytelling, man.
Exactly. This is where it comes in clutch, because it's a good blend of both. So thank you very much for coming on.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks. I had a great time talking to both of you.
Yeah, likewise. It's been great. See you later, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.